My name is Anna Bess Bennett. I've always been called Betsy. I was born October the 20th, 1921 in Derby, Texas. I was named after my mother's best friend and my mother's youngest sister. Well, my grandfather, Bennett, was John Bennett, and my grandmother was Clara Hardy Bennett, and they were from England. And they didn't know each other till they came to the States. And they met when she was 18, and he found out a young English girl was in San Antonio, and he went down to meet her, and they married in 3 days. He didn't know her last name. I had an older brother named Sidney Lionel Bennett Jr., and he was the oldest. My mother had twins, but she lost them. They were a boy and a girl, and she lost them at birth. And then my brother John D. Bennett, right here. And then myself, I was the third child, and then I had a younger brother, Harry Edward Bennett. I grew up in Derby. My aunt and uncle built this house, and they wanted to move to town or something, so my daddy bought it, and they lived there, and then he wanted to move it down on his farm, and so they moved it, and it had to cross the railroad track, and they had to hold up the train while they got the house off the track. Moved it about a mile down to where his farm was.
They pulled it with a capstan. In other words, they drug it down there. They'd put a thing in, and the horse would go around and around. They'd pull up the cable and drag it forward, and they kept doing that until they got it down there. And when they got it on the railroad track and blocked the train, why, the engineer says, "If you don't get this thing off the track, I'm gonna knock it off." And Dad said, "Well, just go ahead and knock it off." But they sat there until he finally got it across the track. Dad he was one of the first farmers in the country that raised peanuts. And so he decided if he was going to raise peanuts, he had to have a threshing machine. And that threshing machine was a big deal. He threshed peanuts for everybody. Well, Daddy was the peanut king. So they had a party for him there at home, and we put a crown on him and crowned him king of the peanuts.
My dad was crippled, but he had a pickup, and he was out in the field all day long.
Yeah.
With those men. He'd come home for lunch, take a nap, but he was there until time for him to go home. Oh, when I was growing up, I was the only girl. The boys did the outside work, and I had to help Mother. I dried every dish that went through that house, ever. And I was the best duster in the country. My mother used to brag about me, and one day it dawned on me that what was going on, and I threw a wall-eyed fit.
Then the next thing was that Daddy had 40 mules, and they were in a mule pen, sort of on a sloping hill. And back at the bottom end of the mule pen was where they had the cow pen down there. Now, when you have 40 mules, you've got 1 or 2 feet of manure all over that big mule pen. And I'd have to wade through all that stuff, especially when it was wet and rainy, and go down there and milk those cows. God, I hated those cows. And flies, my gosh, you just can't imagine how many flies there was down there on the farm. See, Daddy not only had that mule pen, but he had a bunch of hogs. Hogs breed flies. Oh, Lord. I'd have to go down there and milk, and then before I'd take the milk in the house, I'd reach down in the milk bucket with my hand, scoop out the flies and throw them out before I'd take them into the house. I don't think they ever knew what we was doing.
Oh, yeah, they were strict with me because I was the only girl. And
well, you had to get home by the train.
I had to get home by the train, and that was about 10:30. And then Mother had a clock that chimed, kind of like mine. And I would go back and push that clock back. But you know what? She never did tell me about finding it in the morning at the wrong time. Well, the Depression had a personal impact on all. The Depression really had an impact on all of us. I remember all of my friends, we had our best clothes that we wore to church. We had one pair of shoes to wear to church, but our best clothes were made out of old suits that the men used to wear, and every girl had a suit made like that. And we thought we were really dressed up.
And you wouldn't believe how poor we were, too.
But we were never hungry. We always had plenty to eat, and kids really, I don't remember feeling poor. We just had,
No?
Everybody else was in the same boat. I did. Anyway, there were 8 in our class. In our school, first 2 years. And then when we started to Pearsall to school in the 3rd grade, that's when you met your grandfather. He was in the 3rd grade in the same room. So cute. He wore little old overalls and a straw hat and was barefooted. And I remember one day he came in out from recess, and he said to Neva, she was my best friend later on, but anyway, Neva was his girlfriend, and he said, "Neva, you should have been out there taking care of me. They were chasing me all over the place." I was crazy about him from the 3rd grade on up. My mother and Georgie's dad were the very same age, and they went to school together, and they kind of had a crush on each other when they were little. He was my first date when I was 14. I could go with him as long as my cousin went with me. Yeah, we were big sweethearts. Till we were in high school, and then I went my way and he went his way, and then we got together again when we were 22. Daddy said, "I knew you were going to marry him all the time." We got married in 1943, in December. Oh, I don't remember how many came, but the little church was full. And my brother Sidney gave me away. We went to San Antonio, and then next day we started out for Arizona. That's where we were, our first home. He was training people how to fly out at Marana Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. He was a 2nd lieutenant, the cockiest 2nd lieutenant you've ever seen.
George had a menu, and his menu was that he wanted to fly every airplane that the Air Force had. And I think he did. He was wow.
Oh, he was very good to raise his little right hand to go fly. But I didn't mind, really. I accepted that because that's just part of being an Air Force wife. I loved that life. And we moved and moved and moved, but we'd get real excited when we heard we were going to hear a rumor we were moving. It was a great life. Anyway, we moved to Fort Myers, to Tallahassee, and I don't know where else, and then he went overseas. And I had my first child, Butch, while he was gone, and he was 8 months old when his daddy saw him. He went to England to fly the P-51 as a fighter pilot. His plane was named Betsy K, and so he flew this Ace Graham's plane that day, and that was the one he was shot down in.
And I was in, I believe it was in France, and they gave me a week's R&R, and so I decided I'd go to England. And I went over to England, and I said, well, I went to London, had a picture made, and I went and looked up Charlie Hearn's brother, who was in the hospital, and then I went to Georgie's base. And I got to Georgie's barracks exactly at the time that the flight that George normally flew with was coming back. And they told me that George had been shot down. What they had been doing is they liked to strafe those trains, those German trains, and they liked to make the engines explode by shooting into the engines and they'd explode. But anyway, those trains were loaded with ack-ack stuff, and they shoot back at the guys strafing them. And after they got to strafing the train, why, other pilots would fly over and inspect each other's airplane. And they told George that he was leaking oil, and we better head back for England. So he headed back towards England. Of course, the oil was running out of his engine, and eventually it ran out of oil, and the engine froze up. So he had to make a belly landing. And then these buddies of his that was flying with him, they flew around until he made the belly landing, and they saw him get out of the airplane and run to some woods. So we knew that George had landed safely and that he was alive and was run into these woods. And they told me about it. Well, officers censored their own mail. And so when I was in his barracks and they told me about this, I sat down right then and wrote Betsy a letter and wrote Winona a letter, telling them about George landing, and we knew that he was alive, this and that and the other. And I wrote Betsy a letter and told her to go down there to Derby to be with Betsy when she got her letter. Well, she was already down at Derby. And so they was there when the letters came, weren't they?
The War Department wrote and told me that they did see him get run. So, but then we didn't hear any more until he was back in the States. And I'll never forget, I had talked my in-laws into letting me live in a little apartment they had on the same block. And I remember George's dad driving up and tears were just rolling down his face, and he said, "Betsy, Bubba just called." He called the store to tell his dad. So I got in the car with him and we went up and told George's mother, and I remember that so well. Well, I remember when we were going home that particular night, he said, "You saw that Frio County sign on the side of the highway? That was the county we lived in." He said, "I'm never gonna leave Frio County again." Well, 3 months later, he was back in the Air Force. He went back in as a master sergeant, and then we went to Panama and lived in Panama. He was on a inspection team, then he went down in the South American countries and inspected. We weren't anywhere ever very long. Then the airlift came along, and he went away on the airlift, so I went back to Pearsall again with these kids. Yeah, we went back to Germany. We went to Germany then and found out that we could go. So then we went up to Germany. We flew over there, and it took me 2 weeks from the time I left San Antonio until I got to Frankfurt, Germany. And I had Betsy Jane while I was over there, my daughter. And I didn't tell my family over here, nobody knew over here that I was pregnant. And so after she was born, George sent a telegram. My mother fainted. Yeah. And then I was pregnant with John, my youngest son, and he decided that he wanted to fly the B-47. So that was in Wichita, Kansas. So he raised his little right hand and off we went to Kansas. From Kansas, we moved to Alabama, to Montgomery, Alabama. We were there during the time of period that Rosa Parks, which decided that she wasn't going to move to the back of the bus. We were there for a year. And he was going to a school there that year. Oh, then we went to Louisiana, and we were there for 6 years. But during that 6 years, we did some more moving around. We moved from one house, and then we bought a house, and we lived there, and then we bought this property here in Marble Falls because we came here camping, and we came here to water ski, and we loved it here, so we bought this property. And then the kids and I would come as soon as school was out, and we'd spend the whole summer down here camping on the Colorado River right here in town. and we really had a good time. We stayed all summer, and we'd go back to Bossier City. And George would come on weekends, and he'd drive his little Volkswagen down here. It was 450 miles each way. And then he got orders to go to Bermuda, so we left from there and went to Bermuda and lived for a little over a year. We were supposed to have been there 3 years, but they sent us back because his squadron was closed down. And they moved us from Otis Air Force to Springfield, and there was Westover was there in Massachusetts, and we lived there. But I remember so well, while they were there, we were down in the basement, and I heard he came in and he said, I've just gotten orders. And I said, where are you going? He says, I've got orders to go to Vietnam. I never will forget that. And so he said, we'll just build you a house down in Marble Falls. So we took this little paper called the Air Force Times, and it had a floor plan in it that we liked. And so we came down here and we told Barnes Lumber Company here in Marble Falls to build this house for us. And they did, and that house was not planned whatsoever. So when it was time for us to leave, we came down here and the house was not finished. So we lived in a cabin until it was, and he went on to Vietnam. And I was here about another year till he came home, and then he went to Fort Worth, and he retired from Fort Worth, and we've been here ever since. I moved 47 times time I got here. Well, Butch was, he was the oldest, and he was bossy, and he always had somebody crying all the time. As soon as the commercial would come on, they'd all get in a fuss and a fight, and we expected a lot out of Butch, and he had a lot of responsibility. And Chuck was a happy-go-lucky kid. He was the kind that he loved the snakes and the frogs and the horny toads and all those kind of things, and fishing and all. He was just a happy-go-lucky young boy. And of course, Betsy was a typical little old girl. She just liked all the girly stuff and things that young girls that age do. And John was the last one along. The rest of the kids always said that he got to do more things than they did and he did. He got a car, and he bought it himself. I love my grandchildren, and I had a great time with them. I kept them a lot, and when one showed up, the whole bunch wanted to show up, and sometimes it got pretty wild. Oh my, I have wonderful memories of my grandchildren. Cindy was a beautiful child. She had blonde, curly hair, and I remember when she first came home, they brought her home when she had just learned to walk, and I can just see her to this day walking down that hall. She was so cute. Elizabeth, you know, they lived at College Station, so I wasn't around Elizabeth and Kristen as much as I was around the rest of the children. But she loved to come over, and they would come together, and then finally they fussed together so much that I told Butch and Jan I'd take them one at a time, so they came one at a time. Oh, I have a lot of memories of Lindsay. She was well, after Lindsay had Ella, her baby, the other grandmother, Bebe Ruth, and I, we used to remark, we can't believe this is the Lindsay that we knew when she was a little child. She was very, she'd get real mad, and we didn't know why she was mad, and she'd scream and holler, and she is the best little mother I've ever known. She really is, but she was kind of hyper when she was young. One time, her Aunt Ina was taking her to school, And Ina put her purse on top of the car, and Lindsay was throwing such a fit because she didn't want to go to school that I guess I got so excited she forgot about her purse on the car and she never saw it again. Well, I kept Hannah a lot because Betsy lived here a lot at that time, and I kept her a lot. And I remember especially she and grandfather tying up. I think they must have been a lot alike. He was always trying to teach her manners at the table, and she didn't buy that at all. And they used to tie up some, but she was very creative. I kept all the old scraps of stuff in boxes and everything, had them in a drawer, and she was entertained herself making stuff out of that drawer. And Kristen, she was a cute little girl. She really was a cute little girl. And the one thing I remember, we were camping down at Concan, and we were sitting up in the cabin, on the cabin porch watching, and we could see all the kids playing down in the water, and we were watching. And these kids, these other older, Lindsay and Hannah, and I guess you last was there too. But anyway, they were trying to get Kristen to pick up this old rock. And that kid worked like a beaver to pick up that old rock. She worked so hard she almost drowned down there trying to pull that rock up. And then there was Celeste. And there was another one, little beautiful blonde-headed kid. And she could get so mad and have these little fits, and when she'd get so mad on her neck, she'd get so mad you could see the veins just pop up, and she passed out a few times, they said. I didn't see her do that, but and she loved to dance. I can see her dancing now. She loved to dance, always dancing. And I just had lots of good memories of the kids because I used to love to take them camping. I had a very interesting life. Proud of? I'm very proud of my family. I'm very proud of all my children. I think they've done really well. I'm proud of my grandchildren. And now I have 4 great-grandchildren. Who could ask for more? All right. Okay.
Did you comb it down that way, or did you comb it back?
I combed it back.
Well, that's what's supposed to be back.
The Out of Touch, starring Lindsay Kemper as Maisie and Betsy Kemper as Daisy.
There's a story of a 60s lady who was living with the 70s girl. They were 2 women living all together, yet from 2 different worlds. There's a story of a 70s lady who was living with a 60s girl. They were 2 women living all together, yet always in a world. Till the one day when the 70s became the 80s, but they never ever changed very much. And that's how they became the Out of Touch.
But, White Factory cutting down all those trees. I'm going to call Moonbeam and I'm going to get even with them right now, just as fast as I can. Hello? Moonbeam! They're cutting down all the trees.
Gosh, Daisy, turn on the lights. It's dark in here.
Oh, I can see. I don't need to turn on any lights. You just want to waste electricity. What are you doing drinking out of that can?
It's good.
No, it isn't. Cans aren't good for you, and it's just not good for the environment. People throw them out and on the road and all that junk.
Well, I don't do that.
Well, you might, but others do.
Anyways, I got a new job today.
Oh, cool, man.
Well, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Can't wait till tomorrow. Hey, how did you sleep last night?
Oh, pretty good.
I didn't sleep that well because I'm so excited about my new job.
Well, I know you are excited about it. When did you start?
Today.
Oh, today. Well, great.
What are you going to do today since it's your day off?
Oh, I'm just going to look around. I'm going to read the paper, and then I'm going to make a couple of signs with Moonbeam.
Sounds nice. Well, oh my gosh, I better get to work.
Oh, well, shoot. I wish you didn't have to go.
Yeah, me too. Well,
Hey, Moonbeam, is that you?
yeah, dude. Awesome, man. You already started on the signs.
Well, yeah, I did. Now you can do it.
But what? Factory,
Yeah.
you are a but.
Yeah, man. That's good.
Cool, huh?
You bet.
But what factory you are? But what? Yeah.
Hey, now let's...
Down with butt wipes.
Yeah, you know what? They cut down all those trees, there won't be any left for my grandchildren.
I know that. Isn't that a shame? Turn down all the trees.
Yeah, well, we'll show them. Moonbeam, is that you?
Yeah. Awesome, dude. All right, you already started on the signs.
Yeah, man, I've been working for a good while.
Yeah, let me make one here.
Okay, you make a good one.
Okay. Let's see this now. But live factory.
Yeah, they're cutting down all those trees. Our grandchildren never will get to see any trees. They won't
No.
need what a green tree is.
But live factory. You are a but what?
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, pretty good. Well, why don't we write a letter?
No, better yet, let's go down there right now and let's pick it with these
Okay,
signs.
let's go put them up. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna put
To stay! To stay!
down with white Bob Bishop. Down with white Bob Bishop. It's right.
Stay!
It's right.
But what factory? You are a but what? But what factory? Down with you! Down with you!
You better believe it.
Down with but what factory?
Terrible cutting down the trees to make toilets into hay. Where did you come from?
What are you doing here?
I'm protesting against this Bud White factory.
Why?
They're cutting down the trees.
No! Well, maybe to get toilet paper, but we should.
Well, what are you doing here?
I work here. You're gonna get me fired.
Yeah, I hope I do.
Gosh, you've eaten all the spores. Eating little dogs protesting too.
He's working at that factory. I just can't
I
believe it.
can't believe that you were there today.
Well,
believe how
I
you humiliated
I was
me.
there for a good reason.
No, you
I'm
weren't.
gonna picket that.
Yeah, picketing, yeah, okay, get me fired, and all the rest of the workers fired.
If you get fired, that suits me just fine.
Toilet paper is one of the major things that we need in here, in this country. It's an
Well,
industrial...
We might
Man.
need it, kid, but we can do without it.
Bring!
Oh, I'm gonna get that.
No, I will.
Please.
What? Don't tell me, no.
What?
Okay.
What's she saying?
The end. The producer and written production and everything like that was done by Hannah Post. Congratulations to Hannah Post on her fabulous new film, to Lindsay and Betsy Kemper on their fabulous acting. The end.